Kant said there's two presuppositions that we're kind of like born with. And it's not even possible to think without them. And these he calls space and time. And think about it. If I say my mug is on the table, I don't have to say at 12 noon on 2/20/2020, I got to say it in the lecture, that's great, 2/20/2020. It's assumed it's happening in space and time. So I don't have to say on planet Earth, North American continent, the country of the United States of America, the state of California, the location Southern California, Santee, at 200 Riverview Drive, in building B, classroom 205, on the next to the lectern. I don't have to do all that. It's just assumed if I'm talking about my mug, it's happening at a certain place in a certain time. So here's a question for you. Have you ever been or thought outside of space and time? In one of my favorite existential movies, I Heart Huckabees, these existential detectives asked this client, they said, have you ever thought outside of space and time? And he said, space, yes, but time, no. No, I have no idea what you're talking about. The thing is, even if you could think outside of space and time, it's like Plato's cave. That's out in the full light of day. Anything you learned there, once you came back into the cave, how are you going to talk about outside of space and time with beings that live in space and time? You can't. You have to talk to them in space and time terms. And I think this is part of the problem we have with the scriptures and understanding God trying to interact with man. Humans are occurring in space and time, which, as I already talked about, I see time as like this subset or bracket in eternity. But if God is dwelling in eternity, he is before time, in time, and after time. He's all time, all the time, everywhere now, everywhere present. Other comments, questions? But those are just two filters. I actually think this is where Kant might have not been quite as aware, and this is the problem when you live in a monoculture, where everyone looks like you, thinks, although no one thought like Kant. I mean, he was head and shoulders above even the other philosophers of his day. In fact, a lot of them had a hard time even understanding him. But I don't think Kant was aware of other filters that we wear. Give me some other ones that affect the way we perceive reality. Race? Ethnicity? Gender?
Religion?
Yeah. Do you think I see America the same way African Americans see America?
No.
I can't, because I'm not African American.
Thank you for saying that, by the way.
Oh, you're welcome. But on the same hand, none of you know what it's like to see America from like this bearded white gnome perspective, unless you're bearded white gnome. It just has to do with perspective, where I'm standing, what I've experienced, how people treat me. Do you think I understand what it's like to be a woman? Heaven's sakes, no. Now, I can listen to women, I can try to be sympathetic to women, but there is no way I'm going to tell a woman, oh, I know just how you feel. Yeah, oh, childbirth, tell me about it, right? I mean, give me a break. I would be a fool and would deserve a punch in the nose if I start telling women I know what it's like, their struggle, or that sort of thing, or different ethnicities, or immigrants, or whatever. So, but then what else do we have? What about age? Think how differently if you saw that chapel I gave, and I used the example of Witten and his grandson on the beach. They're on the same stinking beach, but he's, knocking on 70, and his grandson's knocking on 7. You think they're really walking on the same beach? No. At least not the one they're perceiving. Socioeconomics, you think that affects the way you, what about languages? How you speak, it's going to be like, your world is going to be affected by your education. All these are, your religion, politics, all these things are filter after filter. And part of what I'm trying to do as a philosopher is to pull people's glasses off and try to get them to look at the world again in a different way without these presuppositions. But it's so hard. Now, this is part of what critical thinking is about. You first have to become aware of your own biases and prejudices and presuppositions. If you can't do that, you can't even begin to think critically. The despair, of course, is we can't have clear lenses. Because even if we get rid of the politics, the religion, the ideologies, there's still things beyond my control, like gender, ethnicity, things like that, that I can't change. There's nothing I can do about that particular, although that may be changing too, right? In the very near future. We'll talk about that later, maybe in my other class. I love what Kant's doing here, and it does open the door for postmodern philosophy. And so next class, what I'm going to cover is we're going to talk about Hegel, and he borrows a lot from John Scotus Erigena, and I realize I forgot a couple things to tell you about John Scotus, but I'll bring that up the next class. And then we're going to talk about the two most powerful philosophy ideologies of the 20th century, and that was Marxism and existentialism. And they're still duking it out today in different iterations. In fact, this new election cycle, we're going to see different variations of both of those happening. The rugged individualism versus the collectivism, right? The Borg versus, no, I'm my own man or woman, don't tell me what to do. And so that should be very interesting and pertinent. Last chance for questions? All right, well, we will end with Kant on that.